Hello, Internet! Gino, that Pinguino Grieco, here again with another episode of Deep Listens. This is a special episode where we are talking about Final Fantasy VII once again, which means I am joined by the one, the only, Chris ZombiePie Redacted. That's great. That's the sound of happiness. Escaping.
For posterity's sake, is the Pokemon podcast the only podcast I have done with you that is not related to Final Fantasy VII?
We did the Final Fantasy VIII podcast.
Yeah, Final Fantasy.
You came in for our Game of the Year
discussion. I've interrupted your Game of the Year discussion.
Yes. You're Final Fantasy expert.
Expert.
Yes. We'll have to have you on for a podcast that is not Final Fantasy related.
Yeah, that's gonna be the next Blue Moon.
That'll be after Final Fantasy IX happens, though.
Delicious. So a lot's happened.
Yep,
we finished this one.
Refresher,
we're almost done. We're almost done.
If you hadn't listened to our last Final Fantasy VII episode, we just got to the part where a person gets killed by a person.
It's Eris.
Eris dies.
Eris dies.
Welcome to Spoiler Town. So after that horrendous occasion, we've moved on. We've found a way to carry on with the mission of Final Fantasy VII, which is saving the Earth.
Did we?
I mean, we did.
Me, as a human being, not really. I feel like... Okay, level with me here. Do all Final Fantasy games have to have some sort of revelatory plot twist halfway into the game, where it tonally changes or the story has to get weird and super dramatic all of this sudden?
I'm going to say yes.
Even the good ones.
I would say first, turn off your camera because internet's laggy. Second, I'd say yes, even the good ones. All of them that I've played have some weird pivot where it just goes to crazy town. Though the good ones, when that pivot happens, it is not destructive to the story that existed before that pivot.
Okay. I don't know if I like 7 more than 8 anymore.
We rounded the corner.
I don't know if I think the twist in 7 is worse than 8. I don't know. I thought I knew this game. I thought I had this game pretty much well figured out. You can go back to the second edition of this podcast where I made a bunch of predictions. All of them were wrong. Other than maybe my predictions that Cait Sith was a spy and being controlled by someone from Shinra. They were basically all wrong. I thought that Rufus was going to make a face turn and go from a bad guy to a good guy. And then
he threatens to do that for like half a second.
He threatens to do that, and he kind of postures himself as if he is going to do that, and then it doesn't happen. And then I made some predictions about who the little voice in Cloud's head is.
And we're going to get to that part today. About how right or wrong you were about... Actually, I think you were right on that call. Or like close. You were close.
I was close. But I like... Okay, I'm sorry that I'm not able to articulate in a cohesive way that I normally am. This game got weird. This game got real weird. And it really does shove its head up its own ass in terms of its own storyline and its own self-seriousness in a way that I found incredibly off-putting. But lo and behold, the characters are still kind of good. In fact, I would say the characters are still better than the actual story.
I
In
would say
Final
that
Fantasy,
that is pretty Final Fantasy writ large. That is a large part of these games. There is usually some pivot midway or three-quarters of the way through the game, which reorients whoever the heck the enemy is, or maybe your characters get reoriented. But the characters are still so good that you generally stick with it. And sometimes that pivot can be really revelatory and work, or sometimes the pivot can be a distraction from the otherwise grounded story they're trying to tell, at which point you kind of jump off the ship. I think 7 is the latter.
I would agree for the most part. I think there are some aspects of Seven's pivot that work well and work wonders for the overall tone of the game, and basically the tone that the game goes for. The problem with 8's pivot is that it comes out of nowhere and does absolutely nothing to build the character of Squall, other than it attempts to justify why he's a whiny brat for his entire life.
And it creates a horrible time paradox.
Yeah, and it also it's just bad.
Yep.
Your Deep Listen's Worst Story of the Year award recipient, Final Fantasy VIII. Put that on the box. That doesn't exist anymore, but put it on the box.
Digital box. Worst story. So why don't we get back to Final Fantasy VII? We were at Aeris getting stabbed through the chest. A bloodless wound. And
the scene where you're essentially lifting Aeris into a pool and then dropping her, it's a well-done scene. I mentioned this on my last blog, but it doesn't make sense that Cloud is kind of standing in the water and then she floats to the bottom.
He's a very controlled swimmer.
And then also, one thing that I found really off-putting about that scene is you go from that beautiful scene to yet another fucking puzzle with the environment. The Coral Valley Cave is such a terrible juxtaposition from the dramatics of the Forgotten Capital. And Disc 2 goes off to kind of a ho-hum start. You're in this cave, kind of climbing up the wall, and it really doesn't reward everything that Disc 1 built up or set in place. There's no dramatic confrontations with major characters that are important to the plot until a solid hour into Disc 2.
Yeah, once you get past the cave, and I guess this is a point in a feather in 8's cap, the D-District prison is a bit better in those regards.
But man, it's such a pain to navigate the D-District prison, and you go up and down, and you break the party up.
But you get Irvine falling downstairs, and you get Cypher posturing and torturing
and then the
Squall.
Boss in the D-District prison is such a pain in the ass. And then there's the cutscene that you think it's a cutscene, but no, wait, you're supposed to control the characters. And up, you're dead, so you have to replay the entire goddamn thing all over again.
Yep. But then, when compared with the Coral Valley Cave and then the Icicle Inn, it's not that good. It's a little bit better, I guess. And so, once you get past the Coral Valley Cave, you go to the Icicle Inn. It's the first town
major town that you are part of. And it's basically Santa Claus's workshop. It's a resort town where you get to snowboard and ski, and again, the game does not follow up on the total gravitas of Aeris's death in any way, shape, or form, unless you decide to go to the scientist's lab and you discover stuff about Aeris's father and mother.
Yes, and when you first contacted me and said, Icicle Inn sucks, there's nothing here, how could they have followed up the end of Disc 1 with this? I was like, did you go to Dr. Gast's lab? And you said, what? And I said, did you go to this building to the left? And you were like, no. And it turns out that Icicle Inn is where Aeris was born.
Not just where she was born, but kind of raised at a very young age. You find out that Eris is an ancient, but she's also like a half-breed human ancient. Yeah. And as a result, she was raised by a scientist that was experimenting on Eris's mother. I forget her name. Ifalna. And they ran away because they knew that Shinra was going to do horrible things to both Eris as well as Eris's mother. So they go to this resort that's in the middle of nowhere where they hope that they can get away from Shinra. And you go through what is essentially a series of diary entries in which you find more and more about kind of what their life was like and why Eris ends up in
Midgar.
But I still don't understand how she's able to get out of Midgar and to her adopted mother.
And her adopted mother finds Ifalna getting off the train, and she dies.
How does she break out? And then why does Shinra not attempt to kidnap her while she is at her adopted mother's place, even though she's the key to finding this important location that Shinra's apparently been working to locate forever, despite the fact that it's a giant glowing cave?
So, that stuff is covered in Crisis Core.
Fucking awesome. I have to play a side quest game.
Well, you don't... I mean, I'll tell you when we get to the end of this podcast. By then, I will tell you. But not now, because we're in Icicle Inn. And that level kind
Okay, so this is not the first time that this is going to happen, to where incredibly important information to the plot of the story is absurd in a very discrete location or a part of an environment that you can totally miss, and then never have that information to fill in the blanks that are boggling your mind for the rest of the game.
Yep. That happens a couple of times.
And it's not even a required location. Well, it is kind of a required location because Cloud gets beat up by the Turks and they throw him into this laboratory. But you're never told to really interact with this environment other than to try and break out and then snowboard down.
Well, except for if you dodge Elena's punch, then you don't even get dropped off there. So you can miss that. You can
miss it entirely.
Yeah, you can just not go in there.
Why? It's of an era of game... I get it. It's of an era of game design to where you were expected as a player to interact with every inch, nook, and cranny of the environments that you interacted with, every single bit and piece, every single NPC. But it is archaic, and they really have to do it something different for when they try to make an HD version of this game, or the remake. Because...
yeah, imagining them going to the trouble of making all those cutscenes with Ifalna
and
Dr. Gast, and then you can just walk by them because you don't go into the right house or click on the right object. That would be ludicrous if you were making an HD game and you had to animate every single one of those things.
Voice acting, animating, and it's still kind of crazy that they did it for this game because, like we kind of established at the very first entry, this is a very important game. This game took years to make. It was a huge risk. So why do they obscure so many parts of the game to the player behind walls that you could very much just walk past? The same could be said for Vincent. It's very much a possibility that you never get Vincent in your party.
Yep. And I think some of this stuff is just a holdover from games like Final Fantasy V and VI. Like, there are some locations in 5 and 6 where there are just... you're looking at a wall, and if you run into it at the right angle, it's a fake wall, and you are moving around in unseen pathways, and those can lead to some big stuff, like items or summons and stuff like that. So
the summons I can understand. Summons I can understand because they add an extra pizzazz to your combat. But they don't have to be game-breaking events for you or resources for you to utilize in the game. Hiding any piece of the story, and this is something that we're going to revisit at the very end of this podcast, hiding any piece of the story where you're animating conveying and depicting in any capacity, whether it be with dialogue or without dialogue, is insane to me. That they would take the time to make these cutscenes, and then it's very much a possibility that you don't ever get to see them.
Yep. It's old design, old games. It shouldn't be an Easter egg that you know who Aeris's dad is. And then Aeris's dad is the doctor that Sephiroth calls out as being a better doctor than Dr. Hojo.
Yeah. So you could very much play the entire game without ever knowing what the significance of that superior doctor is.
Yep. And then once you see all that stuff, you can leave the icicle in, and then you snowboard.
Oh my god.
You know, seeing Aeris's mom and her dad die, and her mom get taken prisoner, and then, you know, juxtapose that with snowboarding.
God damn it. So, I saw input in terms of this, but apparently this is just a shitty minigame no matter what you do, right?
Yes, it's terrible. It's poorly controlling. It is sub-Cool Borders 1.
I don't even know what you're referencing anymore, so I'm just going to
snowboarding video game. It's not very good.
So you snowboard down the mountain. The controls are terrible. They put a bunch of snow... Who's fucking putting all the snowmen on this goddamn snow track? Who?
I don't know where all these gigantic snowballs that are rolling down the hill coming from.
Who?
Why are there Moogles just running around? Where are all these Moogles?
And apparently, the exits that you take are incredibly important because, well...
They're important.
The next scene is just a giant pain in the ass, and I didn't like it. And it's... Remember the end of Disc 1 where there's this really, really great scene where Aeris gets killed and the music crescendos and you have to gather up your party, comfort them, and then Cloud has this really emotional speech about how he has no idea who he truly is. His raison d'etre is not even known to him, and he wants them to still be a part of this party.
And Aeris' theme plays during the boss fight, and that's the only time that happens. It cuts from regular gameplay to boss fight, and the music stays the same, and yep.
And it's tonally consistent, and Sephiroth gets told, remember all that? Because...
What about sick tricks?
Not only is there a shitty minigame, the next environment you go to, which is the Great Glacier, is painful.
It's so bad.
So bad. It's a timed mission, technically. It's very much timed. And you kind of get warned that this is kind of a timed environment. The number of steps that you take are important. Mm-hmm. But you don't really know what that is. And there's some cool stuff in the environment that I made the mistake of attempting to get all of the tools and all of the items. And I should not have done that.
Yeah, the Alexander materia is terrible.
But it's so cool.
It looks really cool. It's just not... It's not great.
Now, I rope-a-doped you into playing Myst at some point. And also Riven.
Yep.
I think that the Great Glacier is worse than anything you subject yourself to in Riven or Myst. Because there's no rhyme or reason. The map that you get is terrible. The environments are so indistinguishable that you really don't know where you're going. Some of the puzzles that are here are really annoying. And the limitation of you can only take so many steps in the environment is really, really frustrating in a way that doesn't add to the environment. Because you can be in the middle of doing something, and then Cloud just passes out and then appears into that weird dude's villa.
Yeah. I would say that Riven, at its worst, is still more frustrating than the Great Glacier, just because...
But there's a rhyme and reason to every puzzle in Riven.
Yeah, but just because there was foresight does not mean that it is necessarily more enjoyable. Their lunacy might have made sense in a certain way, but the Great Glacier, at the end of the day, if you just wander around long enough, you pass out and you arrive where you need to go. Like, if you're not getting every single item, you can actually wander around, and the game will just go like, oh, guess you didn't know where to go. Boop. And then you're at Mr. Holzoff's house. And then you can just climb the Gaia cliffs, and it's not a big deal.
Oh. So, right now we have two pretty shitty environments. So, Gino, what happens in the next environment? Is it just this spectacular set piece that sets forth the next parts of the story, or foreshadowing?
Nah, you just kind of climb a cliff.
You climb a fucking cliff. And the animals and horrible monsters that you have to fight in the cave are fucked.
And you punch an icicle. You punch a lot of icicles.
There are Marlboros in those caves.
And you punch icicles and they hit you back.
They cast fucking magic on you. They're like sentient icicles, and they look terrible. They look like something you would make out of AutoCAD.
Yeah, they... In a game with... I mean, you know, you're considering the fact that it's 1997, but...
Some really great enemy design here.
Yeah.
They're
a lot of unsettling
giant
stuff.
Blue cylinder for the icicle.
Just a big blue cone in the background.
And one of the worst parts about it is that when you fight them and you finally defeat them, there's this weirdly long frame of animation to signify that it's been defeated, where it kind of shatters. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes,
where
I do.
It cracks.
And it keeps cracking.
And it keeps cracking, and then nothing happens. It just stays there for a minute, and then you cut back to the regular environment, or basically the game outside of the battle system, and then they fall down.
Yep.
And it's like, what? Why did I have to watch 30 seconds of watching the icicle crack?
It wouldn't be a big deal if you didn't have to do it 4 times.
4 fucking times. All the while, you also are fighting other random encounters, which are just as hard as the icicles. Like I said, if you're outside of the cave, you have to contest with Marlboros, which are fucked. They are fucked. You're also dealing with... what were the name of those, like, red insect demon things? I forget what they were. They have Trine, which if...
They're called Stilva.
They have some pretty bad attacks. If you fight the Marlboros, it has bad breath. Bad breath is still fucked. Bad breath is all bad.
Fucked in just about every game it's present in.
The first section of Gaia's Cliff is entirely linear, so you stop off at each of the waypoints with the red flags, and you reheat. Oh, let's talk about the climbing minigame.
Oh yeah, you just mash a button.
You mash a button, and basically, if you can get your body heat to like over 30 degrees, you're going to be fine. But if it's that easy and asinine, then why put it in the game in the first place? Why did they have to add an extra layer of bullshit to an otherwise benign and asinine minigame?
Because I don't understand. Why did they build the UI for all of these different things?
Yeah, the temperature gauge, it just appears out of nowhere.
I think it's just the repurposed timer, but they changed the text.
But they took the time to create a new interface for this minigame that only happens here.
Yeah, this game is ludicrous with that stuff. I did not remember it until we started replaying, and this is the only Final Fantasy game that really does this. Period.
And that you go into the cave, and the color palette here makes it incredibly difficult to discern what part is the foreground as well as the background, because it's all blue crystal. It's all this kind of transparent crystal. So is that a bridge, or is it just a crystal thing? Is that an exit for me to go through, or is it just the reflection of that environment? or that foreground piece of the foreground. And again, there's a lot of messed up enemies here. And there are actually really cool items to pick up in the environment, so I had no patience for that, and I just looked it up in a guide, and I picked up, I think, another item for Sid, as well as a ribbon.
Do you get a ribbon?
Yeah, you do get a ribbon.
Oh, wow.
There is a ribbon.
Well, you do fight a two-headed dragon at the end, and that thing's kind of cool looking.
Correct, but in order to get to that dragon, you're climbing up this cliff like 3 or 4 times, dealing with the same crap again and again and again, with no rhyme or reason. And oh yeah, what's the ultimate payoff? You fight another dragon boss. What is this, the 4th dragon we fought in the game?
Dragons are fucked up. They gots to go.
It's the 4th dragon in the entire game. And here's the thing. The big climax of the game is eventually revealed later, and we'll talk about it. How the hell are any of these failed Sephiroth clones able to go through all of this crap to get to the location where they're ultimately going to? Did they go through the fucking glacier part again, the Great Glacier as well, without getting lost and passing out? Did they go to Dr. Hosloff's cabin? Did they fight Schizo as well? Did they deal with the Marlboros? How did they go through all this? And they're mutants that have, like, horrible deficiencies and disabilities. How?
Magic?
Why can't I use that magic to just get to my location?
Well, some would say Cloud is doing that.
So yes, there's a two-headed dragon. The two-headed dragon is all about preparation because it's schizo. It's an entirely elemental boss battle. And if you're not prepared for ice and fire, you're going to have a bad time. But if you are prepared for ice and fire, you're going to be okay.
Yep. And then you go to the crater.
That's something that I've actually noticed is that most of the bosses in Final Fantasy VII, if you prepare for them, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
But there's no real hints in terms of how to prepare for them. You basically have to do trial by fire.
Yeah, you just
basically
die
lose
the first
lose
time.
to the boss battle the first time, and then you know exactly what you need to do. And I don't know if I should praise the game for that, or if I should decry it.
I think it's good that they actually put the save points before these boss fights. That's a feather in their cap that they did not do that sort of fucked up design. But
what if the
old game design,
horrible, deformed, failed Sephiroth clone said, "It uses ice,"
Bleh.
and then it died? Kind of like how the little girls from the one cave shouted, "Float."
Yeah, or there are some fights where Squall's like, "These monsters seem to be slicked in oil."
No shit, Sherlock. But like 7 doesn't do that because 7 feels like you got to learn your shit the hard way, which part of me feels that's more respectable than having the character say, "I have a feeling that we are going to deal with lava. I should equip something that protects against lava. I'm going to do the big bolded Legend of Zelda text like, you ought to know this, son."
Yeah, 9 does not. Some of these other games are not going to have that sort of, hey, do the thing to not die, quite as much as 8 did. 8 was very ham-fisted with that stuff. But after you killed the two-headed dragon, you go to the crater, and then you see more of those caped dudes just dying.
Okay. So here's the first major problem that I have with Disc 2's story. We have been led to believe that this giant crater that has unfathomable power, and it actually is where we have the cocoon or chrysalis of Sephiroth, is the promised land, or it's basically what Shinra has been trying to locate for years, decades even, if we are led to believe that the previous CEO or president of Shinra has been looking for this basically since he founded the company. It's a giant glowing crater that is emitting a giant, it's erupting constantly, exploding energy, pure energy. And it's next to a location where people live and know exactly what you're there for. Oh, you want to go over to the crater? Yeah, you go down here, down the slopes, and then you take a left, take a right, and then you get over there. And then you can climb up it with your icicle things and then find it immediately.
It's basically a big pulsating zit on the side of the planet.
And somehow Shinra has never found this for the years in which they have existed.
And they have planes, and they have a space program. They have built reactors on every continent almost, and they haven't been able to get up to the North Pole to check.
There's literally a city that's right next to this crater, and everyone there knows that there's this giant pulsating zit. Everyone knows that people mention, oh, there's these scary realm guys that are coming up here and going to the caves. They must be doing something weird. Those ne'er-do-wells don't look so good. And no one... So they were able to find fucking Eris and her mom, but they weren't able to find the Promised Land, which is literally, 10 miles away? They didn't, check? Did their fucking brains fail? Did they have an aneurysm?
Shinra is bumbling when they need to be. They are a threat when they need to be. None of their actions line up in any reasonable way in terms of characterization. They are what they need to be when the story needs them to be it. And that's it.
They are what the story needs to be when it is convenient to the story.
Yep.
It's plot by convenience, not plot by what is natural to the story.
Yep. The Shinra are the worst. Replaying this game reminded me that they're just everything involved with Shinra makes no sense.
So,
but hey.
we had the cave after Eris died, which was shit. We had the Icicle Inn, which led to snowboarding, which was shit. We had the Great Glacier, which was a bunch of shit.
But hey, you get the added cut materia, and that's pretty good.
We get the fucking climbing up the mountains, and that was shit. And you come to this really ominous location inside the crater, which I think is built up really spectacularly. The music is perfect for the location, and you do see all of these moments where the failed Sephiroth clones are walking up. You get the sense, oh, this is the reunion. And then there are giant energy walls, which are a giant pain in the ass.
Yep.
That if you walk into them, you get propelled backwards, and then you have to deal with a random encounter with a blue dragon monster thing. And that was annoying. That I failed that 6 or 7 times because the game really doesn't make it clear when it's transparent enough for you to go through or when it's pretty much solid to where it will propel you backwards.
Yep.
I didn't appreciate how... I didn't appreciate that. I did not appreciate that.
I didn't appreciate how it's... first there's wind, then there's wind and a laser beam, and then there's wind, a laser beam, and a lightning bolt, and it just becomes harder to time, but otherwise it's the same gameplay. Why?
And how do you solve that puzzle? You brute force it. There's nothing for you to interact with to suggest one is the perfect time. You have to piece it all together yourself, and basically it rewards you being able to brute force the puzzle. It's there to pad out the game, because I think that they realize that this sequence is actually really short. There's one confrontation with Genova, and then basically the story kicks in for the next 2 hours?
Yep. Because then you find Sephiroth. It turns out...
Find Sephiroth.
So what is your understanding of finding Sephiroth? So what was all of the Sephiroths before that Sephiroth?
All of the Sephiroths before that Sephiroth were soldiers that had Sephiroth's blood, or not Sephiroth, Genova's blood injected into them, and then they would mutate into Sephiroth?
Yeah, that's basically my understanding.
Unless they would mutate into horrible monsters and then they were failures. So is like Sephiroth like the space baby from 2001: A Space Odyssey? If we inject these cells from this alien creature, we evolve possibly into a higher form of life?
Something like that. It's weird. Like you saw Advent Children, right?
No, I was drunk, but yes.
Yeah, at the end of that movie, so like the main thing with that movie is
the main thing is that there's this weird douchebaggy anime character that wants to become Sephiroth for reasons that the story never really extrapolates why.
Well, he's got Genova cells, and he's like the reunion.
There's geostigma disease for anyone who.
At the end of that movie, spoilers for Final Fantasy VII: Advent Children. He like hugs Genova's head and then becomes Sephiroth for a little while.
Yeah.
That, I guess, is what happens when you see Sephiroth of places. It's like a...
Is there a Sephiroth, or do people just become Sephiroth?
So before Sephiroth...
Was there ever...
Sephiroth.
So there is a Sephiroth. Sephiroth is not just a form that certain people will take if I inject them with alien blood.
No. That dude who's frozen in the crystal, in the crater, is Sephiroth.
Okay.
All of the other people were attempted, like, Genova creations, and Sephiroth was just the one who basically ascended beyond it. And he could assume direct control of the clones.
Why do the Genova cells cause people to mutate into the form of Sephiroth? If Sephiroth is a human being.
He's a human being with Genova cells in him. But he's like the most Genova celly. He's like the alpha.
But no, why do people who successfully mutate always mutate into Sephiroth?
So did you play Mass Effect?
Yes.
You know Mass Effect? Did you play Mass Effect 2?
Yeah.
Remember that
favorite games
Reaper
ever.
Who, like, there were a bunch of collectors, and then he would go, like, assuming direct control. And then that dude would be, like, superpowered and could talk.
Uh-huh.
It's like that. Sephiroth assumes direct control.
So Sephiroth is like the collectors.
Yes. Or, I guess he's like a Reaper, and then all of the stupid, shitty clones are like collectors.
Oh.
It's like that, I think.
Why did the story have to become stupid?
It always was. It never became stupid.
It was kind of cool when we were in Midgar and it was like steampunk, like hard science fiction, steampunky shit. And, I didn't like the super heavy-handed environmental stuff that was literally pulled from Miyazaki, but it was more straightforward and easier to follow than this whole existential bullcrap about finding yourself and understanding your place in society or your place in the story.
Remember when Barrett was just trying to take care of his daughter?
And he found the biological father of her daughter?
Yeah, remember that?
And they had to both come to terms with the horrible things they've done in their past?
Now we're in a crater, and there's a man frozen in
a crystal.
And then there are giant weapons that were created by the planet itself out of pure Mako energy, and they are going to defend the planet from all foreign attacks.
Can I just ask you a series of questions?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll answer to the best of my abilities.
Is Sephiroth dead at this point in the story? When he's in the crystal, is he dead?
He is in suspended animation of some kind. So if Cloud did not give him the black materia, he would have just stayed there frozen.
Okay. Is Hojo working for Sephiroth and Genova? Or is he working Shinra? Or doing his own shit?
Did you find Lucrezia's cave?
Nope.
Okay.
Is there an answer to the question I have asked you?
Yes.
Okay.
You should just go to Lucrezia's cave.
I went there and then they told me that I couldn't go there.
You need Vincent with you.
Oh. Okay. Is Sephiroth under the control of Jenova, or is Jenova under the control of Sephiroth?
Unclear.
There's no answer to that question?
It's unclear which is which, because, like, Sephiroth throws around bits of Jenova, but he's got Jenova's cells in him, so they're kind of both Jenova. He's an extension of Jenova, I would say. But it's unclear which is in control of who's in control of who.
So, oh man, my next questions I think would be better served for later portions. My next question is pretty simple. Is there anyone in your party that actually went to Soldier?
No.
Fuck, God damn it. Will the story ever go back to the simple shit that I really liked in the very beginning?
Nope.
Will there ever be any good character building moments?
I mean, yes. I guess. Kind of. Kind
of. Visually, some of the scenes post Disc 1 are very spectacular. I think that the stuff with the weapons is pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah, and I like the weapons themselves.
It's all visual flair. It's not actual substantial, or there's no real substance to any of it. And it doesn't further the plot in a way that I think is very coherent.
Well, now there are just giant kaiju running around.
So wait, let's go to the weapons. So the planet summons weapons to defeat Jenova.
Yes.
Then why did they fuck up all the humans?
So the planet has this much... It has a finite amount of life energy, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And when humans are alive and stuff is alive, it ties up some of that life energy. When it's raw life energy, the planet has this raw resource. When it grows into people, that resource is expended. So what the weapons do is fuck everything up and free up a whole lot of life stream energy.
But shouldn't the weapons be able to discern that the biggest threat to the planet is Jenova and not necessarily Shinra and humans in general? Why aren't they going after Sephiroth and fucking Jenova first, if they're the biggest threat to the environment yet?
They don't seem to be... They're not guided by, like, a smart, all-knowing,
Are they
intelligent
aware
force.
of the giant meteor that's about to destroy the entire planet? Why don't they send one of the weapons into space to stop the meteor?
Who's going to send... Those things don't cooperate. They're not, like, smart. They just blow shit up and kill things.
The planet is shitty at protecting itself.
It's very shitty at protecting itself.
It summons these giant monsters that basically don't get their fucking job done.
Well, they try to kill like Mako reactors and people to free up their life energy. So
despite the fact that the horrible alien monster that almost destroyed the planet 2,000 years ago is still running rampant. Did they forget that the fucking alien from 2,000 years ago that almost destroyed the planet when it was run by ancients it doesn't exist? Did they forget that?
Dude, I'm trying to make sense of it. The planet in this game has some manner of intelligence about, like, I'm wounded, this meteorite hit, and I haven't been able to heal the wound. But it doesn't seem to have a level of intelligence where it can tell, oh shit, that was in the meteor, and that's the real problem. Like, it seems to be able to think just so far as to, like, kill things.
Why did the planet summon its monsters when Shinra was first doing its experiments with Jenova when they realized, oh shit, Jenova's alive again?
Like I said, I don't know that the planet... it's unclear, man. I don't know.
So was the whole point of the reunion project to find a way to relocate Sephiroth?
No. The reunion thing was just a scientific idea that Hojo had. That when you chop up Jenova cells, they come back together.
So did he not know that eventually they would lead to Sephiroth?
I guess he... Like, when you run into Hojo at the crater, he says, my hypothesis was correct. So he thought that they would lead him to Sephiroth, but he didn't know.
So does Hojo like Sephiroth? Why does he like Sephiroth? What does Hojo gain for working behind the scenes and not in a way that Shinra can follow? Is Shinra just giving him the ability to do these experiments? Why aren't they following what Hojo's doing? If I was Rufus and I found out, oh, Hojo, you've been doing experiments behind my back, I'd fucking kill him.
Hojo's just trying to take care of his son.
Why doesn't Shinra do anything about the fact that Hojo is working behind the scenes? Wouldn't that be revealed to be a horrible conceit?
Sephiroth is Hojo's kid. Literally.
What? What?
Yeah. Yeah. You didn't figure that shit out, did you? He's working behind the scenes because his fucking kid is the destroyer. You should go to Lucrecia's cave.
What?
You should go to Lucrecia's cave.
How come when you go into the cave... No, how come when you go into the crater, Sephiroth has the ability to create figments of your imagination? Is that just a part of the cave? Or is that actually his...
Because Cloud has fucking Mako cells and shit in him. Or Genova cells in him.
Then why is it that Tifa and whatever your third party member is also get to experience that?
Oh, right. Yeah, Sephiroth, like, Genova cells let you do weird shit. I don't know. He, like, makes himself look like Tifa or something. I don't know. He magics people.
Is that the cave doing that? Is that the original Sephiroth doing that?
Yeah, it's the original Sephiroth doing that. With magics.
He's doing magic shit?
Yep.
I don't understand the game anymore. It's kind of like the ending of Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull. Shit just happens, and then I just have to sit there and watch it, even though I want to throw up.
Yes, it is exactly like that. And so Sephiroth gets freed. He gets the black materia by magics. Cloud
is flying all over the place, and it's like, wait, what?
And like is on the ceiling for a bit. That's weird.
So, does the attraction towards the original Sephiroth cause all of those... Is that what was causing all of those Sephiroths, fake Sephiroths? Clone Sephiroths?
To come, so yeah, that's the reunion. That is, all of the people who have Genova cells in them are drawn to Sephiroth.
Which even can include flying.
I get that fucking shit, apparently. I don't know. That's weird.
Is that what allowed them to phase into the environments and go through walls?
Probably. Well, that's just Genova cells do weird shit to you.
Wait. The first time you see Sephiroth, other than kind of the weird scenes at the Shinra HQ, you're on the ship, and then Sephiroth just kind of like phases into the environment, goes through walls, and just kind of like teleports into... What? How?
Anime bullshit? Like what? What do you want me to tell you? He's got weird powers that they don't clearly define.
They don't define anything in this game. They don't set any rules. What do the Genova cells do to you?
They make you all crazy.
And then you have an existential breakdown with Cloud, which I really didn't appreciate, because the whole point was that Cloud was able to... He basically realized, oh, I'm not who I am. I guess I'm going to have a dramatic blue screen of death moment in the story because the game needs me to. Despite having assurances that I was prepared to face my reality, even if it was negative.
Yep. Cloud has a breakdown.
I want you to talk about this. So, what was your first reaction to seeing all this the first time? Was it confusion? Was it disappointment?
Yes, it was confusion. I did not fully understand that all the previous Sephiroths were just like Genova cells making you do weird shit. Because I'm like, why did it look like Sephiroth then? If it's like these clones, why is it not... Like, Cloud doesn't look like Sephiroth. Why are all of these other weird Sephiroth clones? Why do they look exactly like him, have his sword, and like do, have his powers too? And then I saw Advent Children, and, a dude hugs a fucking Jenova head and then become Sephiroth. And I'm like, okay, fine. In your weird fiction, anyone with Jenova cells can just... Sephiroth can go, like, assuming direct control. And then he's them or some bullshit. I don't understand it. Or Cloud seeing Sephiroth when he's not really there, but everyone sees him, so that's clearly not the case. It's weird. I didn't understand half of it. I found Cloud's motivations because he seems to understand when he's, like, handing the thing to Sephiroth what he's doing. Like, he buys into the notion that he's not who he thinks he is, so he's just going to act.
There's a sense of resignation. And I actually thought that the scene where you very clearly get this sense of resignation was well done. He's like, oh, shit. You know what, guys? I'm not who I thought I was. He really does buy into the idea that he's just a clone of Sephiroth. And the fact that he doesn't have a number means that he was a reject. And so that basically takes all meaning to his life away from him. But why he believes that instead of being able to get like a reboot and understanding, oh wait, no, I was just a regular Shinra soldier rather than being this heroic dude.
That revelation comes later.
Why didn't he have that revelation instead of immediately buying into Sephiroth's bullshit?
I don't know, because he needs to have the experience in the live stream. It's weird.
So does Sephiroth... I'm sorry that I keep asking these questions. Does Sephiroth know that Cloud isn't actually a clone or a clone of Sephiroth, and he was just a regular dude that got rescued by Zack?
He does not know that, like, I don't know how much Sephiroth knows about any of Hojo's experiments.
So what Sephiroth says about Cloud at the Northern Crater, when you really get into it, Sephiroth actually believes, and it's not a deceit that he's trying to perpetuate in order to cause him to just give up the black materia?
I forget what does he tell him? What does he tell him?
He tells him that he is a clone, and you're not just any old clone, you are a failed clone. You are me. Instead of, I threw you into the vat because fuck you.
Yeah, I think it's unclear how fucking omniscient Sephiroth is after Cloud ices him.
What does God need with a starship?
Yes, basically. So once he gets thrown into the live stream, it's unclear how many different things Sephiroth can see or know just by being in the live stream and like then being in the crater. It seems like he knows everything. Mm-hmm. So I guess he knows that Cloud is a failed clone, and he's able to use that.
But he's not a failed clone. He's just a dude from the army that got
shot up with Jenova cells. Which is basically all the clone. That's what the clones basically are. Dudes shot up with Jenova cells and irradiated with Mako energy.
Why did they end up in the test tubes?
They're getting irradiated with Mako energy.
If they killed Sephiroth...
Oh, you mean Zack and Cloud?
Yeah.
Doesn't Hojo, like, take them and experiment on them because he can? Hojo's fucked up. He's a fucked up guy. But the ladies love him.
Okay. Yeah.
Costa del Sol.
And now the scene at Costa del Sol is totally unacceptable. Why did they kill him? Why didn't they just throw him in jail or punish him?
You don't even know.
Okay. So
we get past that.
Here's the ultimate problem that I have with all the revelatory moment in the Northern Crater is essentially Cloud gives the black materia to Sephiroth. That causes the entire plot to go into motion. It's crazy. It comes out of place. I guess you could say that there's some foreshadowing that this is what was the reality all along. I think. Is this as bad as the orphanage scene from Final Fantasy VIII?
I think that the payoff from this with Cloud and the live stream and Tifa that we're going to get to is far better than any of the payoffs that anything in Final Fantasy VIII ever did.
I would agree for the most part, but here's what I want to say. If you're going to go crazy, stupid anime shit on your story, at least start with, in your story, being stupid, crazy anime shit. And like I said at the very beginning of this podcast, I really liked when Final Fantasy VII was grounded in reality and was kind of this gritty steampunk story set in this kind of 90s mystique or era of science fiction storytelling. It's a great product of its time, but none of this stupid anime shit was ever built up or scaffolded in a clear and coherent way. It really hurts, and it really brings down everything that the game has done before it. And certainly you could say that about 8, that the orphanage scene is so bad that it's really comes out of nowhere. But look at all of the stuff that's happened before the orphanage scene. These kids were fighting in a battle, getting shot at for their SATs.
Yeah, it's a weird, fucked up thing to begin with.
The game was always fucked up. Final Fantasy VII was not always fucked up. There was this emotionally
it kind of was.
gripping...
Cloud was always doing weird, like having these weird visions that made no sense. It's just up until then you think that maybe it's PTSD or maybe it's some sort of something else is going on with Cloud. Like you were saying, he's being gaslit. Why are people telling him things that he knows happened? Why are these people doing this to him? When it turned out the problem was with Cloud the whole time. People weren't being mean to him. He was not who he thought he was.
So I don't like any of the story revelations. I feel like they're not built up. They're not foreshadowed in a way that is great. I feel like you're right. There are some payoffs. I think the live stream stuff that we'll talk about, there are some moments there that are great. But it's as you said when we first started this journey, Final Fantasy VII is so close to greatness. It's so close.
But it's not. But it's
painful.
Not there.
It's painful how close it is to greatness. And I don't know what the historical context was. Maybe they truly did want to do something that was groundbreaking, that really shocked the audience. But to me, it's just weird. It's just weird.
And that's kind of where I settle on it. I think 7, it tries a lot of things. I think that the game, the live stream segment is excellent. It's probably the second best part
salvages
of the game.
All of the problems that I have in the Northern Crater because of how gripping some of the moments are in the live stream. Almost. Right up until you realize that it's still the stupid, crazy anime bullshit that you had at the very beginning.
Yeah, and so after the crater, you escape. There's a mock trial or a sham trial where
that scene is fucking the worst. Okay.
Where they're going to kill Tifa.
So let's talk about my prediction about Shinra. I'm sorry if this is a bit of a tangent. I predicted that Shinra would ultimately reveal itself, we were evil, but we've been evil all this time because we knew what Sephiroth was doing. We believe that the only way to solve this problem is if we pull all of our resources, even if it hurts the environment. We're being these hardcore industrialists because this is the only way we can know to solve this problem. And it almost hints that Rufus is, in fact, the good guy. He's just someone who believes that, the cause, justifying his own means. Nope. He's just the fucking weird, evil anime villain.
Yep.
That's self-centered about profit. That's just self-centered about being the most famous person, continuing this monopoly, even though it looks like the planet is going to destroy everything that is material and important to him.
He plans on executing the members of Avalanche just so that the people who he says are dumb and won't know any better are placated and won't rebel against Shinra or freak out too much.
Despite the fact that there is very much this giant meteor that's about to crash into the planet.
And there are gigantic kaiju monsters wandering the land, destroying things.
That Shinra has been woefully incapable of stopping or destroying.
Yes. But hey, they're going to execute Tifa.
And then blame Avalanche, this small terrorist group that hasn't really been doing any of its terrorism recently at all. In fact, it's almost been like 2 or 3 months since they last did an act of terror or eco-terrorism against Shinra. So have people even remembered who they are?
I guess so. There's a bunch of reporters there. And so you're Tifa in a gas chamber.
Which is not a great...
And you wiggle your way out of the gas, and then you escape, and a weapon starts attacking Junon, and it, like, tries to...
Oh my god, no, the convenience of everything in that scene is just the worst. Kate Sith was able to sneak into the press conference by dressing up as a human.
As a reporter.
And then, oh, guess what? Yuffie is also dressed up as a fucking reporter, and... I guess the cameraman just thought she was a reporter too.
She's really good at it. She's a ninja.
So is the cameraman that she roped into filming her also a ninja?
Probably not. But another bigger question: you don't have to get Yuffie, so she could just not be there.
I thought the scene with the kaiju monster was really cool.
Yeah, it's a shame that the kaiju monster decided it wanted to suck on the Junon cannon.
For no goddamn reason. Oh, hey, this giant cannon shooting at me. How about I go, like, 2 inches to the right of the giant cannon of doom?
Nope, it's like, what if I put my mouth on it? Aww.
And then they shoot it and kill it.
Shoot it directly in the head. This swift-moving ocean creature just puts its head right in front of the giant cannon barrel and gets blown up. But only after it frees Tifa.
Getting Tifa out of that fucking gas chamber was such a pain. Oh my god.
That probably counts as another weird minigame for no good reason, right?
Because you gotta... Of course,
the arms and the legs.
Dumbass guard leaves the key on the ground. Conveniently left the key to release her from the gas chamber. Of course. And apparently Tifa has, like, this special materia that she... shoved up her ass that gives her the ability to hold her breath for 15 or 20 minutes, because that's how long it took me to solve this puzzle.
It's really bad gas. It's, like, not effective at killing people.
It's like they're trying to kill her with Raid.
Yeah, basically. It's actually just a smoke machine. It's really uncomfortable, but it's not killing her.
The one thing that I really disliked about that minigame is you're actually supposed to press 2 inputs in order to get her to get the key and move it from one location of her body or in the environment to another one. And I never got the sense that I had to do that until, like, the game's like, hey, maybe you should try pressing 2 buttons at the same time. It's like, what?
That's an option? What? Yep, thanks, Guidebook, for telling me how to do that.
There's a real funny fist fight between her and Scarlet where it's like, I'm going to beat you up. I'm going to beat you up. And they start punching each other, and eventually Scarlet's like, hey, stop that. No, ow, 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 ow.
Yeah,
stop
there's
that.
A slap fight.
Stop it. And then there's, like, 3 or 4 Shinra guards in the background that are just not doing anything, and they got guns, and for some reason, when Tifa beats the shit out of Scarlet, she's just like, well, bye. It's like, but what? No, what? What? You have an army behind you. Why don't you just shoot her?
It's extra funny because Tifa's whole thing is punching and kicking, and so a weird Shinra executive going toe-to-toe with her
makes absolutely no sense.
Nope. And then
you
escape, you jump off of the Junon cannon, and the High Wind catches you.
Just catches you. That's literally Star Wars. Like, not Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back. Han knows exactly where to pick up. Well, actually, Leia has a premonition to where she knows exactly where Luke is. I like how in this scene and also in a later scene in Mideel, whenever something dramatic happens to Tifa, she has her weird anime eyes go, ah!
Yeah.
I always like that because they knew that they wanted to show some form of expressions.
But that's all they had.
With their limited character sprites, but that's all they could do. So again, it's making the most out of limited resources. And you get the High Wind, and I guess they kind of justify that the High Wind is okay with Sid hosting a mutiny against Shinra.
Yeah, the pilots just wanted to fly a plane. They didn't want to work for Shinra, and the High Wind used to be Sid's plane.
Wait, Okay, well, I'm just so done with this game in terms of justifying its convenience that I was just under the impression that they knew who Sid was, and Sid was this famous pilot that they were like, "Oh, you're Sid. You probably know how to treat us with respect and decency rather than Shinra's heavy-handed utilitarianism."
Yeah, it's kind of both. I believe Sid, when they ask to take the tiny Bronco from him in Rocket Town, I think he says, "You already took the High Wind. This is my only plane." Like, what the hell? I think the High Wind was his plane, and they took it.
Mm.
But the explanation for why the crew is okay with the mutiny is exactly what you said. Sid is a legendary pilot, and they would rather serve under him than Shinra. And then you go to Mideel.
Yeah.
You find Cloud, and he's in a wheelchair.
He's in a catatonic state.
And you lose Tifa. You lose 2/3 of the party that I use.
Yeah. That's kind of bullshit because there were a couple of confrontations that you have to deal with. And that meant I had only one character that was of a reasonable level, Yuffie, because I was preparing her for the Pagoda scene, which is a bunch of bullshit. No one told me that her character moment was totally worthless and didn't actually have any payoff whatsoever. I thought that the Pagoda scene was actually going to be worth a fuck.
No,
but it wasn't.
You get the Leviathan summon, and you get her ultimate limit break, and that's it.
And you discovered that, we realized that, yes, Yuffie, you're right. We are kowtowing to the forces of Shinra, but it was either that or we continued to fight this war that we knew we could never win.
It's somewhere in between. You need some reasonableness, but you need some energy and youth. You need both. But also keep going with those people and rob them blind. Take all their materia.
That was the best scene in the game. That was the best scene. Is like, hey, I love you. Hey, steal their shit. Okay,
steal their. Get it all. Get it all. I want it all.
So why does that environment become completely inaccessible after a certain point in the story?
Which one?
Wu-Tai.
It doesn't.
Well, you can't do anything there. Whatever.
Yeah, there's just nothing else there.
Okay.
You did all the things.
Well, no. Don't you get, like, Leviathan? Isn't there the giant cave system with the fire in it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you do get Leviathan scales to clear that cave out. There's a really good Yuffie weapon in there.
Oh, boy. I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
You just can't hide it. So then there's the train and Coral.
Do you think that the game does a good job in... So why is Cloud all of a sudden now catatonic?
He went in the life stream, and apparently if you fall directly into the life stream, it fucks you up real bad.
But they do that immediately again, and then nothing bad happens to them.
That whole scene is a weird fever dream, and I don't even know how that's supposed to work in terms of the science of the game or like the reality of the game. I have no idea what that scene is.
But literally they fall into the live stream again, and nothing happens to them.
Yeah, I have no clue how that works, but you're supposed to understand here that Cloud falling into the life stream made him all catatonic and crazy because the life stream fucks you up real bad.
And then it happens again, and nothing happens to him.
It actually does the opposite.
It fixes his catatonia.
Him.
So basic premise is you need to find these various MacGuffins, which are the huge materia. And not the black materia. There's conveniently another materia that you need to gather up in order to progress the story. So 70% of this game is getting magical MacGuffins that progress the story. First time it was...
Welcome to storytelling.
It was the keystone to get into the Temple of the Ancients. Then it was the black materia. Now it's the huge materia. Is there any other MacGuffins after the huge materia?
Of course there is.
Oh, fuck me.
Well, I mean, I guess there's confronting Sephiroth.
So Sephiroth is a magical MacGuffin?
I don't know. It's unclear. I don't remember if there's another true MacGuffin, like you just need this object.
Do you think that they should have had extra environments for each of the huge materia, or did you like going back to some of these environments again?
I liked going back to them. I didn't want to have... One, the world would have had to be bigger. Two, I thought that it was nice to have some extra development with each of these locations.
I agree for Mount Coral. For Fort Condor, that mission can go fuck itself.
Well, that's just all of Fort Condor's anything. Pretty much. That minigame in Fort Condor sucks.
Sucks
every time.
I like going to Mount Coral and then having this moment to where Barrett could essentially regain the faith and confidence of his fellow countrymen.
Or destroy them again.
But then again, you can also not have Barrett in your party, and that moment doesn't happen to him. He doesn't get that sense of gratification that he's finally done something right.
Yeah, I don't think I had him in my party. I think I had Vincent, Yuffie, and Sid.
I did as well. So Barrett didn't get any character development or anything out of that scene. And I remember telling you, I know that the train sequence is... I didn't like the actual train sequence. I thought it was very cinematic, but what you ended up doing on the trains was so contrived and scripted that it broke the entire experience for me. Of course, I jumped from one train basket to the next, and there's another random encounter. Ooh, baby. There's 10 minutes.
I enjoyed the cinematography of it and just the impressive spectacle of your train catching up to the other train and then jumping off.
Sure.
Like, that whole...
Everything
technologically was cool.
Everything that you actually do on the train is
dumb.
It breaks from the cinematic. And controlling the train is the worst.
That's the worst. Controlling the brakes and the acceleration are just the worst on the train.
So, for those that read my blog, many of you will notice that I basically sent out a Yelp in which I kept crashing the train into the village. And I probably at some point should have been, well, that's just me. But I got committed to the idea that, no, I have to get all of the materia. I want to get all of the huge materia. So I thought, hey, just hit the buttons over and over again, over and over again, over and over again.
Sometimes you need to alternate.
The game doesn't really tell you that until it clearly is like, oh, it's been 2 minutes and you haven't figured this out. Hey, try alternating them. It's like, what? What? And here's the biggest problem with all these minigames is each minigame has a different sense of logic or different sequence of events that it needs you to do. So because each minigame is in its own little isolated world, there's no really cohesion between them. There's no real universal interface. There's no really anything
carryover.
There's no logical carryover. One minigame does not prepare you for the next.
Nope. They don't even have the same UI.
So, I like the cinematics, you're right. The cinematography is great, but everything you actually do on the train is just this horribly life-sucking event.
Yep, and then you get the Ultima materia because you save Coral.
Of course there's this horribly powerful materia that is some random kid dug up. That kid, like, if you talk to him before you take it from him, he's like, oh man, I'm going to sell this for, like, millions of gil, and then I'll be able to help my family move out of North Coral, and we can live a happy life. No, just give it to me, bitch.
Well, if you don't save North Coral, he sells it to you for a whole lot of gil.
But now that kid will never be able to move out of North Coral. He has to live in the squalor of that town for the rest of his fucking life.
Well, maybe he'll be the one who makes it big and uplifts the rest of North Coral. Maybe he's going to be the one who made it, and he's going to make good. Probably not. And then you go to Fort Condor. That was your first time doing the Fort Condor minigame, right?
Yeah.
It sucks.
It's the worst tower defense. And here's the even stupid thing, is that even if you fail, it just immediately transitions you to a boss battle. And guess what? It's more worth your time to simply do the boss battle because you get a cool item from the boss.
Really?
Yeah, you get an Imperial Guard, a weapon for Oh no, it's not a weapon. It's a defensive item.
I did not get that. I successfully won the shitty tower defense game.
Well, you have to spend so much money to do that, and also you get like XP, son. You got to get that mad XP game up.
I forgot that stupid minigame. So every time... So did you not play the minigame? Did you intentionally throw it and just fight the boss?
I tried to, but I didn't really understand. So monsters are weak against these, and then regular enemies are weak against these. And then I just placed a bunch of random enemies. And of course, I didn't realize that a certain part of the map was navigable by the enemies, so they just went up that. It's not very clear what are navigable spaces for the enemies and what are unnavigable spaces for the enemies.
So, my problem... I did it. I won it via tower defense. I forgot what the rocks, paper, scissors was, but I didn't care. You can kind of brute force it with just money. The problem is, that fucking tower defense, if that's even what you'll call it, that RTS bullshit or whatever the fuck it is... None of the regular characters have any sort of AI to them, unless you tell them specifically what to do, in which case they will attack things on the path.
And not only that, but the game... I was super confused because the game always stops like, hey, an enemy is fighting this character that you put on the map.
Is that cool?
Is that okay? It's like, of course it is. Attack!
I told it to attack. But... Like, if you have a character whose purpose is not run in direction and kill, like healers will not just heal because there's a damaged enemy in its vicinity. Ranged units will not attack things that are in their range unless you explicitly tell them to. Characters will not move from an enemy to another adjacent enemy. Your different stationary defenses they're not under control. They just release objects at a set interval. It's the worst. It's so bad. The characters have a hard time moving around each other.
And they're the worst characters because they're not even sprites. They're like these horribly polygonal, very basic polygonal characters.
They just mush up against each other till they die.
And I feel like the enemies have units that are far superior to yours.
They aren't. You just need to rock, paper, scissors.
I don't care.
They just have more units than you.
I lost it. There was a boss battle at the place, and because I was able to win it, I got extra XP and a cool item.
And you still got the Phoenix.
And I still got the Phoenix materia. And I still got the huge materia. It doesn't matter. It's actually to your benefit to actually fail the mission, apparently.
I played... To win that, I was playing that stupid RTS thing for like an hour.
And
don't play that RTS.
It's not even a good tower defense. Like, I've played some crappy tower defense, like on the internet, free tower defense games on domains like Armored Games. Like, I've played better Flash browser tower defense games than this.
Pixel junk monsters, it is not.
Yeah, it's
so
a bad
don't
thing.
play that. And then you never have to go to Fort Condor again. Thank
goodness.
Actually,
because after this mission, don't all the Fort Condor missions just disappear?
Yes, that's the last one.
Yay!
So you did it, and then you go back to Midel, and Ultimate Weapon's there.
And now it is time for the story to get fucking stupid.
I gotta say, I almost died against Ultimate Weapon. I got super lucky. It would have wiped me, and I think I would have had to replay the Fort Condor mission or something. I forgot to save.
Yeah. Well, that would have been bad for you because... I don't know, man.
That mission sucks.
Apparently you can steal a ring from Ultimate Weapon, but he kept screwing me over to where, like, two of my characters always had to heal.
Yep.
And so I didn't steal the item, but I don't care because I just wanted to get over with.
Yeah, you can fight Ultimate Weapon again.
He's no joke. He is
he's
no joke. Do I have to fight him again in the confines of the story?
You do not have to. You can chase him down. He's an optional boss.
Oh, boy.
If you kill him, you get Cloud's best weapon.
Great. So why is Ultimate Weapon just flying around?
It's just flying around fucking shit up. That's what it's up to.
So his ultimate weapon is a weapon created by the planet.
Yes. It's just flying around fucking shit up.
Why is it fucking up this, like, pro-environmental village that has no horrible impact on the environment?
It's just a big old monster. It does what it wants to do. There's no, like... Other than fuck things up, they don't have a lot of intelligence. It's
terrible at its job.
It is.
Unless you count destroying your party, like, good at its job. It's... This boss battle is no joke. This boss battle is not great. He's got attacks that really there's nothing to counter with, other than maybe
just kills you.
He's got multiple attacks that just can immediately kill you. And you beat him, but not really. He just flies away off to do whatever ultimate weapons do.
Yeah, and if you decide to kill him, get used to that.
Oh boy, so he's one of those bosses that flies to a different location whenever you beat him, and you have to beat him like 4 or 5 times?
Whenever his life gets low, he flies away, and if you don't immediately fight him again, he heals himself.
That's a bunch of bullshit. I don't know if I want to do that.
I don't know if I want to do it. I've done it before. It is the most beatable of the optional weapons.
Oh, that's right. There's other ones. Oh man.
Yeah, Emerald and Ruby are fucked.
I don't want to do that.
You don't have to.
I don't want to do that
because we need to get to Final Fantasy IX quickly.
Oh, okay, yep. And then there's the live stream sequence. The Earth is breaking apart, and despite the best efforts of Tifa,
her and Cloud fall into the
live stream, and immediately Tifa is somehow transported into the consciousness of Cloud.
Yeah, basically, the live stream is a weird. Again, you know how I said there's weird magical bullshit where, like, Sephiroth can take over people, and people see him when he's not really there, and it makes no sense. When you fall into the live stream and Tifa is in Cloud's subconscious, talking to different iterations of Cloud in this physical space, I guess the live stream is just full of... It's a wonderland. I don't know.
It's almost like the story's like, shh, quiet,
This scene to happen. Just let it happen.
It needs to happen. This story is not going to work if we don't let this. Just accept it. But wait, didn't you just establish that falling into the live stream will horribly destroy your brain?
Not unless you fall in with your childhood love interest. In which case, she'll go inside your head and fix it.
But wait, how is it that in one scene the live stream destroys Cloud's brain, but somehow going into it restores his brain?
Love finds a way.
So why is it that Tifa goes into Cloud's subconsciousness, but Cloud doesn't go into Tifa's?
How come there's physical ground on which they're standing? Are they standing? Is this all in Tifa's head? Is it all in Cloud's head? Who knows?
Why is it that the substream, the live stream, is depicted as being kind of this amorphous liquid, but they're somehow, like, just standing on a solid, like you said, a solid plane?
And why is that solid plane, like, the past? Why is it all of these locations? Why is it Flashback Town?
Does the planet know that Cloud and Tifa are the key to stopping Genova?
Sure, why not?
Or did it just say, hey, these two need to have some existential bullshit in their lives, so let's just have them have it?
I can't... This is the game at its most inexplicable.
It's not just inexplicable, but it is another case where you shut up, you stop questioning it, you accept the spectacle, and then you can have a good time.
Exactly, because it's a great scene.
It's a great scene. It makes absolutely...
The mechanics make no sense.
Mechanics make no sense. How does the planet know that this is the key to restoring Cloud and restoring his psyche? I don't know.
Yeah, like, have you read the Harry Potter books?
Yes.
You know at the end where Harry's dead, but he's not dead, and he's, like, in this weird metaphysical space?
Yes.
Talking to Dumbledore. It's like that, basically. This scene outside of time and reason that makes everything tie together nicely, even though it has no bearing in the reality that the world has crafted to this point.
Not the fun game?
But Tifa goes back through Cloud's history, and you see him as a child, and that is a real thing that happened. You see him...
I thought actually learning about the true past between Cloud and Tifa was great, because you discovered that Cloud and Tifa aren't actually the close friends that they both once believed. I thought that was great.
Yeah, and Tifa never had a crush on him. Like, she thinks that she always liked Cloud.
Which almost helps lends itself to the fact that what they're building up on this adventure is genuine, and that's kind of magical. Like, it almost suggests that true romance is built by the character of a person, not just the convenience of one's past.
And, that works as long as you weren't trying to date Ares the whole time.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't... What really hurts this scene is if you were invested in a different female character, then all of these scenes and moments really have no emotional gravitas to them, or weight.
It's less, but it's not... It still has some weight, because there's clearly a love triangle. Or a love quadrangle, if you've got Yuffie or Barrett in there.
And... you discover that essentially Cloud was a fuck-up his entire life. He wanted to impress Tifa so as that they would be friends, but Tifa was always like, man, that kid's weird. I don't want to play with him. And then Cloud always fucked up the times that he worked with to try and court Tifa, despite the fact that he clearly
he was kind of a loser. Like, none of the other kids liked him.
And
he was bullied.
He failed to get into Soldier, or they rejected him, but then he joined Shinra anyways.
Yes, he joined Shinra to try and get into Soldier, and they did not admit him, so he was a foot soldier.
Yeah.
Basically. And
the moment when Zack gets his ass handed to himself, and this is a little bit too forward, and he turns to another one of the soldiers, and the soldier takes off his helmet, and it's revealed to be Cloud, is actually a really good scene where it's like, yeah! Like, I actually said that when I played the game. Like, yeah!
Cloud was there the whole time.
He was there the whole time.
He's not completely in his own head. He's not a complete imagination. But he's kind of messed up.
And then when he finally realizes who he is, and he learns his place... It's almost like the magic of storytelling allows him to really shine for the worth of his character rather than the convenience of the story. That basically everything that he's done in this story to make the story progress and work with the characters and help them grow was actually him and not the training that he had in the past, because he didn't really have that much training.
Yeah. He has the body of a soldier, but he does not have any expertise.
To that point, suggests that it's almost like Cloud is a real character with a sense of progression rather than Squall, who's just the same character for the entire story and just gets all of these people to help him because it's almost...
He finds love, though.
It's almost like Cloud has a sense of compassion and ability to work with other people and then also help them in their time of need. And that justifies people helping him at his time of need.
Yep. And
it's like
I really enjoyed the It is. I enjoyed Sephiroth. It turns out he's defeated not by Zack or Cloud being stronger than him. He's defeated because Cloud sneaks up behind him and stabs him in the back, basically.
Oh, no, but you forgot the part where he also gets stabbed by Sephiroth?
He gets run through by Sephiroth, and he picks the blade up with his hands and throws Sephiroth into the life stream.
Awesome. So wait, how did Sephiroth get into that crystal? Did the life stream just poop him out?
Basically.
Is that giant cavern the basic asshole of the planet?
So, it seems like things with Genova cells, the planet can't just absorb them. The Genova cells are a foreign body.
It's like it's insoluble fiber.
Yes.
It poops it out.
It poops it out into the crystal.
It's like
Exactly.
it's like Arby's. My body doesn't want any of that business in me.
Exactly. It rejects it. Same thing with all the Genova cells and all the other stuff.
And then all of a sudden, after having these really emotionally taut, gripping scenes, and then Cloud finally discovers himself, he magically no longer has his emotional breakdown. And he's like, okay, we're good.
And there's the moment where the Cloud gets to know Tifa because of Tifa's mom passing away.
Yeah.
And so he actually follows her to Mount Coral, or Mount Nebel.
Yeah.
And saves her, but no one believes him. Or he tries to save her, or help her.
Why does Tifa forget all this shit?
She was young. I don't know how old they're supposed to be, like 7 or 8? 10, maybe?
So it kind of makes sense that Cloud forgot all this shit, because he was in this weird Mako reactor that injected bullshit into him. So why is it that Cloud essentially assumed the memories of Zack?
So you went to the basement of the... After this, you just went straight to Nibelheim, right?
Correct.
And went back to the Shinra Mansion. So you saw Zack... What happened to them? They got the Sephiroth juice pumped into them. They were experimented on. Zack frees them.
Zack is okay because he's soldier and he's already had stuff pumped into him?
Yeah, he basically can deal with it. Cloud is all fucked up from the Mako. Like, they talk about Mako poisoning.
Mm-hmm.
Cloud's got it.
Yep.
After that. He's all messed up. So Zack beats the shit out of the scientists holding them up, and then they escape. And that whole time, Zack is still talking to Cloud like he's okay. And so Cloud, in that state, starts losing track of himself versus the story that Zack is
whenever
telling him.
Zack talks to him, he's like, oh, I'm just going to absorb that as my own.
He can't tell what are Zack's stories and what are his own personal history, basically. And so they get wrapped up in one another. So he adopts some element of Zack and some elements of himself.
So why does Tifa not remember the past?
It's that, well, she gets really brutally injured.
The story gets her too.
Well, yes. And she gets hurt, and she doesn't want to contradict Cloud because she's afraid of pushing him away, I think she says, right? Or afraid of him leaving.
But then that's counterintuitive because what that ends up doing is causing him to experience this mental breakdown that almost causes him to die.
Yeah, but until he was in the live stream, he wouldn't have been able to put it all together. He would have just rejected it and said, Tifa, I know what I'm talking about. Until he was in the magical green goo.
Which can sometimes kill you, but then also...
change your life for the better.
They just say, hey, I guess it's time to go home, and then they just leave the live stream. How did they do that?
I really enjoyed that whole sequence, and we had a podcast with Kelly Dunlap, who's a PsyD. She has a podcast on games and mental health, and does some research on that sort of stuff. And she mentioned this sequence with Cloud as being one of the standout moments for mental health in games in terms of treating it with respect. And I agree with that assessment of this scene. That Cloud is a person in a bad way. He has had this mentally trying experience, and that doesn't make him not the hero anymore. It doesn't make him a complete failure. It doesn't mean that because he was confused about what his past was and what his present is, that he's incapable of being the man he needs to be to save the world.
But it's all scaffolded in this skeleton of anime bullshit.
Yes. You have to accept the anime bullshit. Once you get past that, there's some inspirational stuff in that.
I think that I was never quite able to boil out that poison from the story, and as a result, the subconsciousness scenes never really impacted me the way that they were intended to. I just found them bizarre and oftentimes out of place in the grand scheme of the story. How the story goes from being eco-terrorist to now having this existential confrontation about the meaning of one's life and what that means is an incredibly big leap on the part of the game. It's a logical leap that hurts the thematic scaffolding of the story, and it also negatively impacted my overall impressions of the story and what I have to look forward to in the future. Because when it works together, certainly you have an interesting scene like this or one before, but if even one piece to this puzzle had been out of place, this would have been unbearable. And there have been moments to where there is one piece missing, and what ensues is very much unbearable.
Yeah. But I think on the whole, they get the scene. And then we didn't talk about how the scene with Zack in the basement of the mansion is easy to miss. They give you no prompting to go back to that room. There's nothing else there. Nothing else about the environment
changes. It's a rather
changes.
Significant cutscene that a lot of care and attention was put into. With actual...
An entire fucking game was based on that scene.
Yep.
They made a game
based on the scene in a location that you have no reason to revisit, no reason to go back to, and it's not even in the easiest part of that environment to go to. You have to go all the way back to the basement, and not just any old basement where you picked up Vincent. You got to go back to the library.
Yep.
And there's no real good reason why all of a sudden going into that location causes Cloud to experience a flashback.
Well, now he knows who he is and he knows about Zack.
But what part of the environment, there's no real justification. There's no real environmental justification for him to experiencing that. That could have happened anywhere. It's like...
Well, it's the tubes. That was the tube where he was trapped.
Sure, so why didn't it happen when I revisited the one village where Zack's parents are there?
He's remembering his own past. He's not just remembering Zack in general. He hasn't figured it out yet. I wonder if that cutscene should have happened during the sequence of the live stream. Why did they take it out? I don't know. That's a great question. But you wanted the explanation for why Eris wasn't kidnapped like her whole childhood, right? Zack.
Yeah. Okay.
Zack says, I'm going to Midgar.
Mm-hmm.
My girlfriend's there, I think, or something like that.
So why did
I know someone.
So did the Turks not know that he had been in this fucking test tube for like 3 months?
I guess so. But Zack was dating Eris.
Okay, so...
And he is a soldier. Like, an actual soldier.
When they kill Zack, why don't they just pick up Eris immediately after that?
I mean, they basically do. Cloud, when Zack dies, that's the beginning of the game, pretty much. Cloud, remember in the flashback, in the live stream, Cloud basically comes up with his whole persona as soon as Tifa finds him in Midgar, which is like a couple of days before the start of the game, if that. So the time between Zack dying and the game starting is maybe 2 or 3 days. And that's the thing that always got me. I always thought that flashback was way further in the past. But it's not. It's basically the very beginning of Final Fantasy VII. And honestly, you might want to play Crisis Core at some point.
Fuck
because that sequence, just for that sequence, the sequence of Zack.
Oh great! Now I have to buy a PSP.
Or just watch it. You can watch it too.
Oh, so the next thing you're gonna say is I have to play the fucking Vincent game.
No, I wouldn't say that to anyone.
Dirge of Cerberus.
I wouldn't say that to anyone, though one of my podcast co-hosts might make us play that for the podcast at some point, that asshole.
Oh, I don't...
He tried to say that that's a good shooter. He's wrong.
He's horribly wrong.
Well,
PS2,
I think we're caught up to where...
good shooters. I'm gonna just go
That's
off
true.
and say that.
It's true. I think we're caught up to where you are, right? So the next podcast we do, we're probably going to finish this game.
Yeah, we're gonna finish this game. The next
And
part,
then we're going
we're gonna
start
be in a
Final Fantasy IX.
submarine. We all are in the yellow submarine.
No, it's red. Actually, it's gray.
It's
You have
great.
to kill the red submarine.
Then you can take the red one, and then
You have to kill it.
okay. I actually did a little bit of stuff where I revisited all the locations that you can pick up items. So I took up the key to Sector 5, which allows you to go back to Midgar. And if you haven't done that, for the next podcast, I'd like to talk about whether or not seeing the ghost of Eris is a real thing, or if that is just a weird glitchy thing that they've kept in the game.
I'll see it if it's there. PlayStation version.
And then I am going to subject myself to chocobo racing and breeding.
The whole of it?
I'm going to do all of it.
That's going to take so long. We need to get Final Fantasy IX faster.
I'm going to spend an entire day of chocobo racing and breeding.
Okay. You're doing that to yourself, but we're probably going to be starting Final Fantasy IX very soon.
I need this.
You do it.
I need this in my life.
You do that to yourself.
And then...
You got to be the very best, like no one ever was.
Gotta be the very best. Na 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 na.
Wah, 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 wah.
Na 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 na.
Chocobos, my cause. Racing chocobos.
Final Fantasy Go. Make that game.
Oh, fuck. There's just cactuars everywhere. Oh, no, a Marlboro in this bathroom.
Oh no.
I've got all this.
Now I have to play this weird Final Fantasy, the game that Square Enix is making for the Apple Watch.
Honestly, remember the Pocket game from Final Fantasy VIII? They did it already. There you go. Chocobo Worlds.
There's a nice little speech in the Highwind where Cloud basically recognizes, look, guys, I understand that I'm not the person that you thought I was, but we need to do this together. We need to do this for the betterment of the world. I don't even know if this is going to work, but let's just try and stop this meteor from fucking up our entire planet and way of life.
And everyone's like, yeah!
It's like, wait, what? You have no idea if this is going to work.
Yeah!
Wait,
but we're
what?
going to do it.
You have the forces of Shinra. You have the forces of the planet. You have the forces of Genova and Sephiroth, which I still don't understand if they're separate or actually cohesively together or interconnected.
They're interconnected.
And then Hojo's doing some weird shit. And I don't know if he's connected to Shinra or Genova or he's just doing his own shit.
He's taking care of his kid.
He's creating weird, horrible eldritch abominations to just attack you.
Yeah, by having kids. Fucking them up.
So, my final impression thus far. Here's the weird thing. What we've just played is probably the least taxing in terms of gameplay. I don't think there was a single segment of Final Fantasy VII that I was like banging my head against the wall in terms of the difficulty of the gameplay. Because there's actually not that much in terms of the gameplay.
Yeah, there's the Gaia Cliffs, and there's like 3 dungeons to start this disc, and then it's a lot of quick-hitting boss fights.
Yep.
And mini-games.
And so many mini-games. But that's a different type of difficulty. It's not incredibly difficult to deal with.
Yeah. The game's going to start popping off now, though.
And I don't know if I'm ready for that.
I know you're not, but
I'm not. I'm not.
Well, on that note, I think our second to last
Save
Final
me.
Fantasy VII podcast.
Save me.
Second to last. Do you have any more predictions?
Sephiroth really just wants to eat hamburgers and donuts and chill. What is there to predict? Just like what more is there to predict about the story? Sephiroth is actually this weird mutant monster thing that's from Genova.
Yeah. I mean, you could try to predict how it ends.
Sephiroth gets defeated. And let me guess, because it's a Final Fantasy boss, he's going to have multiple forms.
You don't even know. Don't even know.
Oh, great. It's going to become like 2001, where it's just like a giant floating space baby.
You don't even know.
That's really assuring to someone that's already feeling like I got blocked by this game.
Remember how at the end of Final Fantasy VIII, like, Ultimecia junctioned Griever and became a giant cat woman thing?
Yeah?
It's more fucked up than that.
Oh, boy. So I'm not just going to fight regular-ass Sephiroth?
It's real fucked up.
Is the game going to get really hard?
I don't... So, honest confession here. By this point in Final Fantasy VII, I did what you are doing, and I got the Chocobo, the gold Chocobo, and I got Knights of the Round. So everything basically from here on out was a joke because I used Knights of the Round. So I don't really know if any of it's difficult because that Limit Break one-shots every boss for the rest of the game, pretty much. 1 or 2 shots every boss for the rest of the game. So I have no clue. I'm not going to be using Knights of the Round this time, so it might be hard. I don't know. Maybe.
Is there a point of no return in the story?
Yes. I think.
Mm.
There's a point of, like, difficult to return.
Oh.
But I think the game warns you.
Okay.
Like the final dungeon. It's hard.
I really don't think I should do the Chocobo stuff.
I don't either. I think you should just power through it so we can get to Final Fantasy IX faster.
I really feel like
that game's good.
Should I do the ultimate weapon stuff? These are the 2 things that we didn't discuss from our previous side quest discussion.
I think you should... You know, you've tried the Chocobo racing stuff, right? You know how that works.
Uh-huh.
There you go. You know.
Mm.
Just if you keep doing it, you get a better Chocobo. It goes over all land types, and then you get Knights of the Round, and then you roll everything. You might want to just try to fight one of the weapons. Like, don't... You're not going to win. Save before you do it, just to know what the hell those weapons look like.
Is ultimate weapon actually hard?
That one's beatable.
Okay.
You can beat ultimate weapon. Ruby and Emerald are fucked. You have to, like, really grind to even be able to be capable of fighting them, and I wouldn't do it.
Oh, boy.
I would say, like, run in, like, save, bump into it, die, and go, wow, that's messed up. Why'd they put that in there? That's pretty much it. The rewards for Ruby and Emerald are nowhere near worth it. Like, I think if you beat Ruby Weapon, you get a gold Chocobo. Like, that's the payoff.
Great.
So, with that exciting note, we will be finishing Final Fantasy VII soon. Congratulations.
This has been a weird journey that went places that I was not ready for this place to go places.
And then we're going to go to Final Fantasy IX, which I'm looking forward to. This has been multiple years in the making. This has been over a year in the making. We've been having these stupid Final Fantasy bets for over a year now.
I didn't even get anything out of this one other than you got to play a game you've already played before.
I mean, I'm playing 7 again also, so that we're both informed. I would play a thing. You didn't ask me to play a thing.
I don't even know anymore.
Tell you what, after Final Fantasy IX, you can pick something like a regular podcast host, and then everyone in the podcast will play it. We'll all bend to your whim. Just don't pick a WWE game.
What?
Don't be a jerk. What will we even get from that? Probably nothing.
Probably nothing.
All right. So thank you, ZombiePie, once again. Again, listeners, if you want to get in touch with the show, at DeepListensPod, DeepListens.
If you know any of the answers to the questions I've asked on this podcast, please provide your input. I would greatly appreciate it.
Please help. Or you can also reach us at deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. Thank you once again, ZombiePie.
Yay.
Thank you, listeners, for listening to this journey, this harrowing journey through Final Fantasy VII. Till next time, peace!